I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
It is my pleasure.
You have to be happy in this new year with this great album out. How long did it take for you to put the material together for it?
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your comments on the album. Well, it's a big story because we started the band as an idea during the pandemic with a friend. Both of us had a few things written in the past. We didn't talk to each other about it. But since we started working on a common project, we started bringing those, showing them one to the other, and then a few songs started taking shape. So I had a few tunes, he had a few tunes. We put them together, reworked them, and looked for what was consistent across the entire writings that we had, and we ended up with 10 tunes at the end. So I would say that roughly the whole process, maybe because it happens in the first album, sometimes it takes like quite a few years. It took us 4 years only because we had all those tunes written in the past and we had to cherry pick the ones that would actually fit on a great album. So most of the songs were written during that period, and at the end we just decided that we also want one big single, and we sat together and wrote one more. So we ended up with 10 songs in total.
And speaking on that, I wanted to ask you, what are your lyrical inspirations for the album?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So the whole band was conceived under the influence of Halloween. So myself, I haven't been much a big fan of. I hadn't been a big Halloween fan in the past, but somewhere during the pandemic period as well, I was sitting in my flat in London, and I had the idea of, okay, I'm not a big fan of Halloween, but I could just carve some pumpkins just to kill some time. So I started doing it, and I got interested and decorated the whole apartment. And an idea came to my mind. What of a band that would combine heavy metal and rock tunes with this atmosphere? So I started writing songs in that spirit, like having that spooky feeling, which is not the soundtrack of a horror movie exactly, but not funny Halloween either, something in between.
Sure.
So I started writing lyrics in that um, context. So because I didn't want it to be very shallow, just singing about some Halloween tunes, I started using Halloween lyrics as metaphors of something else, for example. So I wanted the whole album to have that atmosphere, both musically and lyrically. But behind the lyrics, we could have some more serious meanings about life, about existence in general, questions and unanswered questions that human people have, relationships with other people. So yeah, but above all, it has to be spooky. It has to have those references and that atmosphere, both lyrically, musically, and also image-wise, like our album cover and the videos that we're making. We like to have that spooky context representing the band.
And is it safe to say that you'll continue with the theme on future releases?
We will, to an extent, yes. We want to keep um, that idea, that direction that we have taken. Because when we started doing it, we realized that there are some other bands that do the same thing at the same time. So we could be part of a genre, maybe.
Yeah.
I hadn't been a fan of Ghost before starting the band, but when we did, we realized that they had become like a massive band at the time back in 2020. And I started listening to them, and I became a fan of them. and in the process got influenced as well, and realized that there are, because of Ghost, there are other bands, like there's a band in England called Green Lung, a few others that are not necessarily musically very close. It's always heavy metal, but lyrically they are following this folklore, devilish horror imagery and lyrical context. So we thought that we could be part of a movement potentially, but above all, it's because we like it. It's interesting. We like the atmosphere. We like the imagery. We like everything about it, like artistic horror movies, literature of that sort. It has always been an inspiration for us. So we will certainly continue. Maybe it won't be exactly Halloween, the future records, but very similar, close to spooky horror uh, themes like that.
And one of the standout tracks for me is The Witch. I wanted to ask if you could speak on that track.
Oh, yes, certainly. The Waits is probably the last song that we wrote for the record, and it's the longest. And for this one, I wanted, because I wrote it personally, I wanted to do something that one of my favorite bands have done in the past, like Opeth. Like what Opeth were doing in records like Blackwater Park. I mean, obviously we don't have the growls, but I wanted to be I wanted it deliberately to be the longest one in the record. We didn't want to have many long songs, but this one had to be the longest and it had to be the last on the record. And I wanted to have dynamics, acoustic parts, heavy parts, and kind of taking the listener to a journey from something smooth over to something heavier with dynamics, and ending the way that we did it with those acoustic guitars, like being fierce, but at the end being a bit melancholic and depressive. And the lyrics are kind of following that pattern. So supposedly there is a witch, which can be a metaphor again. But if you're following the lyrics, you're supposedly walking into a forest, being scared that you might end up having an encounter with a witch, and you have to be very cautious to avoid it. But at some point, you do meet the witch, and the song becomes very fierce and a bit lunatic. And when you do have the encounter with a witch, it's not a always in my lyrics. I don't want to have like a monster at the end that is like a killer or something. I want the monster to be illusions, to be unveiling a truth that makes you uncomfortable and maybe depressive, unveiling a dark secret which puts you in a bad mood. So that's the monster, that's the witch in the song. That's why it ends in a solitary, depressive way. But that was deliberate. I mean, I started with a riff. The riff came to me. I like the riff. That's how it starts. And then I started playing around with dynamics. And then I decided, okay, this one might end up being this one long song that I want for the record. And it did. And I do like it.
And when I think of Witch tracks, I think of Witch Hunt that Rush did off the Moving Pictures album, and the twist that Neil had wrote on the story of witches, that, you know, most of witches, especially like in the United States, that were burned at the stake, were
He
not
did.
witches. They were just people who believed different other than Christianity, and
Exactly.
fear that they were killed. And I love the contrast and twist that you put on the same topic and kept it alive.
It is. It is interesting indeed. The whole story in the United States, especially in the area of Maryland and Massachusetts, well, in New England in particular, right? Have you seen the movie called The Witch of that same name from Robert Eggers?
No, I have not.
I recommend it. It's very interesting, both from a cinematography and from a director. points of view. It's really interesting. It's directed in the old ways. Only one camera used on a low budget, and it had an influence on me. There are some. I didn't write the song thinking of the movie in particular, but I can relate the song to the movie. I do recommend it.
Another standout track I wanted to talk about is The Devil's Discord. It's another one of my favorite tracks on the album.
It might be my favorite too. It's the one song that we wrote at the end after having everything done. We thought maybe we need a like a hit single, so we did write it having that in mind, not a like a hit really, but something that is a little bit more. Uh, I wouldn't say commercial, but more of an easy listen in a way. What I mean is that it's following that pattern of verse, chorus. Then there's a riff, a breakdown, and there's a chorus again. I mean, from that perspective, and we wrote it together with Alex, who is the other main songwriter in the band, the bass player, and he wrote a part, I wrote a part. We put them together, and we came up with a song. And lyrically, it's um, it's inspired from the poetry of John Milton, who has written Paradise Lost,
Mhm.
and it also has some references taken from Tolkien, J.R. Tolkien, who has written The Lord of the Rings, and he's written a lot of other things that predecessed the events before The Lord of the Rings. And according to that literature and that lore, the god of Tolkien's universe, he created the angels, and then he had a fallen angel, similarly as the Bible, who became the similar fallen angel with the devil. And in Tolkien's world, the way that the god creates life, and he's the only one that can create life, is by having the angels sing. So with God singing and the angels singing, that's why they are creating the world. And that's why they are creating life. So the fallen angel is jealous of God, and because he cannot create life himself. So what he can do is corrupt life. And the way that he does it in Tolkien's world is by discords. So the angels are singing, the fallen angel is creating discord in their singing, and with that discord, he is corrupting life. And there is a chapter written by Tolkien called The Discord of Melkor, which that is the name of the fallen angel in Tolkien's word. So I translated it to the devil's discord, similarly as the devil is corrupting life. And we had this idea of a girl, it could be a man, it could be anyone, but in our story, it is a woman that gets corrupted by the devil and turned into a witch. So she doesn't believe in ghost stories, but she gets affected and she starts deviating away from other things and from life and getting dedicated to that. So that was the idea. And I mean, musically, we just wanted to be a banger, like an interesting chorus, some harmonics, and like building up the verse before this massive chorus comes up. So yeah, that was it, and it works very well when we play it live. It's a very fun song to play.
And I wanted to ask about the live experience. What can fans expect when they see you live?
Yeah, we've played a few times in London in small clubs so far, and it's been great. Obviously, it is our first shows, and to be completely honest with you, I haven't been much involved with bands in the past. I've always been writing music, but this is the first official band that I'm starting and running, and I haven't played live much in the past. The other members have, but for me, it was very interesting because I had to. It was a whole new experience. But what an audience can expect is that we're pretty solid in the way that we play, and we're very bonded with each other. So we are very energetic on stage. And what we're also trying to do is we're trying to be a bit theatrical, which is, I know it's a trend these days, and I know it's very difficult to do it on a low budget, but we have a lot of uh, a lot of fun doing those things. So we do put a small show together. Like we have some pumpkins that are uh, like a, like jack-o'-lanterns, and they are facilitating the atmosphere. And we have like spider webs and stuff, and it's like it feels both spooky, I would say, and fierce at times. So it's interesting. There are dynamics, and I'm pretty sure that it works well with the audience. At least the reactions that we had so far were really, really positive. Like I had people that when I would tell them, they would ask me like, "How many times have you been doing shows?" I would say like, "It's our second show, it's our third show," and they wouldn't believe me. Like they said, we look like we've been doing it for doing this for a long time, but we haven't toured yet. But we have something scheduled. So late February and early March, we will be touring the UK. A few shows. We'll play in London, of course. We will play in York. We will play in Manchester, Liverpool, maybe in Portsmouth as well. So it will be fun, and we will enjoy. We will experience the van life for the first time. So it's going to be good fun.
I wanted to ask you as well if you could take me back to your early days and how your musical journey started.
Yeah, certainly. So I have been playing with Alex, the other main songwriter in the band, since we were in secondary school, maybe 15 years old. So I was teaching him. I I took some classical guitar lessons when I was a kid. I didn't do much with that, but I certainly started playing. And when I started listening to rock and roll and heavy metal, I picked up that old guitar again. And I was teaching him to how to play like easy songs like the intro of Unforgiven, Metallica, those kinds of things. Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, his first chords. So we started jamming together. A few other friends jumped in, so we kind of formed a band. We only rehearsed, we never played live, but it was a really nice feeling. So it was mostly covers, Metallica, Iron Maiden, then later Opeth, Sentence, Catatonia, those kinds of bands. But from the very first days, I was very much interested in writing my own music, even though it wasn't good. I just felt this feeling that I want to be creative. I want to do something. I want to do what those bands are doing. And it's a pity that after graduating from high school, we all went to the uni. We started having different lives, and we never really did much with music. Only one of our lead guitarist at the time, he continued playing in bands. He got a lot of experience, and he formed a lot of bands during all those years. And he he kept the spirit alive, but we wouldn't hang out much for the years after high school until we both went to London together for a postgraduate degree initially, and then at some point we became roommates, and we started talking about those bands again and our early days. And he got me into recording because he had that all that equipment, and he was doing records himself. So he got me into that, and I thought, okay, that's maybe in this new era, I don't need a big budget. I don't need to form a band from day one. I don't need to have a contract with a record label. I can do that myself. Um, so I started doing it, and I really enjoyed it. So I took it to the next level. I started just trying to knock on doors and on record labels, sending demos and stuff. And at some point we decided like, okay, let's do it together. And that's when I phoned my childhood friend during the pandemic period, and we started working on that project more seriously, and it took flesh and bones. But yeah, we've always been big fans of the metal genre from everything, like heavy metal, death metal, all those extreme genres like black metal, even. Always, our musical taste has been very close to the Scandinavian scene. All those bands that emerged from Sweden, Norway, Finland in the 90s. That is our main influence, I'd say.
wanted to ask you as well, in the recording of the album, did you have tracks that actually didn't make the cut that will be used for the next release?
There are a few. Yeah, as I said, we cherry picked the ones that were the most consistent and the best ones, honestly. There are some leftovers that I do like a lot, but for one reason or the other, they didn't make it to the album. There is a chance that some of those will be used, not in a future LP, but we are thinking of um, releasing an EP maybe in the 2025. So we will write a few new songs, maybe one new song um, as a flagship for that EP. Maybe have a cover as well, and sneak in a few of those leftovers from the previous record that didn't make it to the previous record. So they might see the light of day at some point in 2025 because we do have those ready. They're not properly mixed at the time, but
Hmm.
it's not a lot of work to get them done. So yeah, certainly. And again, they are in the same spirit. They are very Halloweeny, spooky vibes. So they will be interesting.
And I also wanted to ask you again, getting back to the album, I wanted to ask you, what is the best way to get a physical copy of the album or any merchandise that you have?
Yes, yes. I have to reveal that because so um, we cut the album in a limited number of LPs, proper vinyl, gatefold with a nice cover printed, and it's 100 pieces. And we haven't advertised it yet. I have them myself, and we put them in Bandcamp, but we'll officially start advertising it probably this weekend. We will put out the word, so you should be able to go to our Bandcamp. Like a fan should be able to go to our Bandcamp and order merch, which is going to be this LP plus some T-shirts that we put together at three different prints: the album cover and then some plain ones, black and white with a logo. So it will be good fun.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be, my friend?
Our message would be that they should, if they are interested in a band that is trying to get all those Scandinavian 90s musical influences in contemporary music, uh, be it a banger, be it a more mid-tempo song, and they also enjoy the Halloween spooky atmosphere, then they should definitely check us out, and they will not miss out. Um, they can find us on Spotify, they can find us on YouTube, on all major streaming platforms. And if they happen to be in the UK in 2025, in early 2025, then we would be more than happy to see them on the road in one of our shows. That would be amazing. And we do have a lot of future plans, so they should stay tuned. And a lot of interesting things are going to happen.
Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for creating an album that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was refreshing to hear your album. I feel you're on a great direction, and I love the themes behind the album. It definitely keeps you immersed throughout, and that's one thing that is lacking a lot nowadays. And it's great to get into an album that you can just go on a cinematic journey from beginning to end. And I wanted to
Thank
thank
you very much. Thank you so much for your kind words. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to us that you wanted to have that interview and you do enjoy the album, and you're certainly helping us out with this gesture. And but most of all, thank you for enjoying the work that we did, because above all, it's like a few friends that share a common interest in music and literature and arts in general that started working on this endeavor. And we are really happy that we put this out and there are people that appreciate it. It means so much to us.
well, thank you, my friend, again, and you have a great rest of your day.
And you certainly. Let's keep in touch and have a good rest of your day and a happy new year.
Happy New Year, my friend. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.